as church folks, we don't always get it right. And I don't want to say church folks, as believers, as followers of Christ, sometimes we miss the mark. The very gospel that they had believed on.
Listen, I know you want.
What's up, my dearest Hope family? It's Dallas here. Welcome back to another midweek. Let's jump right into it. I'll be reading for you Acts chapter 9, verse 26. It says, when he arrived in Jerusalem, he tried to join the disciples, but they were all afraid of him, since they did not believe he was a disciple. So let me bring you up to speed. So Saul, who we now know as the Apostle Paul, had been breathing threatenings and persecution and even approving of murder of the believers in Jerusalem. He asked for papers to go down to Damascus and into the synagogues and to arrest those who were believers or those who were of the way of Christ. Long story short, Paul gets saved during this journey, and at some point he comes back to Jerusalem, and that's where we pick it up at. And it says that he tried to join the believers there, but they were afraid of him, and they didn't believe he was a disciple. And I just want to bring a few things to light from that verse for us as individuals. The first one is we have to realize that, like Paul, sometimes our past can haunt us, depending on what we've done, what we've said, and who we have offended and or hurt. It may take some time for those individuals to realize the working of Christ, to see the fruit in our lives. And that's why the scriptures that says, if anyone be in Christ, there are new creatures, old things have passed away. Behold, all things have become new. That's for us to grab hold of, for ourselves. And of course, we know that for others to be true, but we have to make sure we hold it for ourselves, because otherwise, when someone else, jumps on our paths, we may be like, oh man, am I really saved? No, all things are made new. Those people need to catch up and catch up with the work that's happening in our lives. Secondly, it's, as church folks, we don't always get it right. And I don't want to say church folks, as believers, as followers of Christ, sometimes we miss the mark. The very gospel that they had believed on, and the Christ that they were following, Paul could be saved by, but in their mind, there's no way. This man was violent. He was approving of Stephen being stoned. There's no way this man can be a disciple. That's why it says they did not believe he was a disciple. So it's important for us to realize that this gospel that we trust in, that we have been saved by, that it can save and transform the life of anybody. The gospel is powerful. That's why Paul says, I'm not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God to save. And then the last point I want to make is, that would be hurtful. It doesn't say that Paul was hurt. Well, Saul at the time, but we know him as Apostle Paul. It doesn't say that he was hurt, but imagine, us going to be around some people that we, that are fellow believers, and then maybe they heard something about us before, and they're like, I don't know if he or she is really a disciple. That could be discouraging. But the point I want to make to that is for us to realize that God is faithful even in matters like that. Because when we read the next verse, it says, however, Barnabas, whose name means son of encouragement, he brought Paul before the apostles and told them how he had been converted and how he was preaching the gospel in Damascus and all these things. And they then allowed him to move freely amongst the Jews and the believers, sharing the gospel. So we have to remember, again, that no matter what we've done before, once we're saved, if we're in Christ, we are new creatures. Secondly, that the gospel in which we've been saved by and that we believe in is powerful and impactful, so much so that it can save anyone. And then as we experience challenges in our walk of faith, even with those in the church, God is faithful to have someone come and speak on our behalf so that we can do the work and the will of God. Someone that sees our fruit, someone that sees the work of God happening in our life so that we can walk out our purpose. So I hope there's something that you can grab from this midweek sharing and take it with you. Hold fast to your confession of faith no matter what. Know that the gospel that you've been saved by not only changes you, but has the power to change anyone who believes on it. And as I've always say, no matter what you're going through, no matter what you're facing, what you're praying for, keep praying and always know that in Jesus, there's hope. Have a great day.